What was your grief response when Charlie Kirk was assassinated this week? I don't know about you, but I felt incredibly sad, shocked. I felt angry. What was your response? Today, I'm going to talk about why we respond the way we do when tragedy happens, what happens to our body, the stages of grief, and what we can do about it in order to grow from the experience. Hello, I'm Dr. Brian Clemens. I'm a licensed mental health counselor, and I deal with grief and trauma on a day-to-day basis. And I wanted to share with you some of the reasons you're feeling the way you're feeling. And I wanted to share with you a little bit about my personal story with grief and how that's impacted me and what you can personally do about the emotional reactions that you may have had this week. As I was thinking about my reaction to Charlie Kirk's death, I don't know him. There's no personal connection there. I just started exploring, why do I feel this way? Why did I lose a little sleep last night? That's pretty normal when you have a grief response. I had a brother that passed away. He was close to Charlie Kirk's age. He was 29 when he passed, and he died in a tragic car accident. And I remember when I heard that, the deep guttural feeling that I had, the sick feeling that I had when that had happened. And although my brother didn't pass away in the same way as Charlie, it was a tragedy. It was sudden. It was difficult for me. So maybe you've had some tragedy or some trauma in your life, and the echoes of the past have impacted your response to this type of thing. So today I wanted to tell you why that happens. One of the reasons why we have triggers or emotional reactions to these things are due to our past experiences. So when you go through a trauma, it literally can freeze in your brain. So when you go through a trauma, a lot of things are happening biologically. For one, your amygdala gets triggered. That's the fear center of the brain, the emotional center of the brain. It's very powerful. And so it creates this like super memory, this very sensory memory that you have. For example, I hear a lot of stories where they just lost their father, for example, and they're walking around town shortly after, and they see somebody that resembles them from afar. Very sensory. It triggers an emotional response to them because they think they just saw the person that had passed, or they smell something. Maybe it's the dish soap from the dishes that they're doing, and it reminds them of a memory. Maybe a good one, but maybe a bad one. Sometimes locations that we go to can affect us because they remind us of something that had happened, like a car wreck or something that had happened in that same location. I like to give an example to my clients of a 10-year-old, let's say. This is a hypothetical example, not a real one. He's walking to school one day and he encounters a pit bull dog. And the dog is not a friendly pit bull. He growls at him and shows his fangs and actually attacks the 10-year-old. He rips up his arm. He's bleeding. A neighbor comes out and the neighbor pulls the dog off. They call the ambulance, comes, and the boy is just bleeding all over the place. He gets into the ambulance, goes to the hospital, and they have to do surgery. And right before the surgery, the boy's mom shows up and she screams, "My son, and what happened?" And she sees all of the terrible things she just heard about it from the boy. Goes through the operation. He's okay. He gets let back. He gets released from the hospital. He goes home. And 2 weeks later, he's walking down that same street to school. Just being on that same street is a trigger. Eventually, he encounters a dog bark in the distance as he's walking. And what do you think happens? A physiological response, as if it's happening again, can happen. He either runs away, back home, or he just toughs it out. So in this case, he toughs it out. He goes to school. He's sitting at his desk, and he hears an ambulance go by. What do you think will happen? Same physiological response could potentially happen. His heart rate would pick up, and he would be distracted from school, wouldn't be able to think very well. He goes out to the playground later that day, and he hears a girl screaming, as young girls do. It resembles the thing that he had been through, and so he has another physiological response. So what happens is that experience was so traumatic, it froze in his brain. It's stored up there, and either it'll get better naturally, or he may have to go to therapy to work that out. But those echoes of the trauma are really what happened to us. We go through various things, and I won't list them, but there's a lot of them, lots of abuses and things that people go through. And when we resemble echoes of the past, little triggers that are often sensory, sound, smell, sight, different things like that. It could be a movie that triggers us. Then our bodies sometimes will act in the same way and we'll want to run away. A lot of people will respond by flighting. They want to run away from whatever's triggering them or is really difficult for them. And this is a natural response in our body. It's called the sympathetic nervous system that gets activated. It's the fight, flight, or freeze system. A lot of things happen. Our hands get cold. Our skin temperature changes. Our blood pressure rises. We can sweat. Our muscles will tense up. A lot of things happen. It affects how we think. We often don't think as well when we're in a trigger response. And so you may ask, well, what do I do with this? What do I do with this information, Dr. Brian? And let me share a few things. First, I want to talk about 5 stages of grief real quick. The 5 stages of grief are really helpful in labeling what it is that's happening to us in any given moment in our grief response. They don't happen sequentially, like I'm in this stage first, second, third, fourth, fifth. They actually happen dynamically. Just imagine like a ball of emotions, and they can happen at any given time or any given trigger. So sometimes we can feel like we're in denial, while 2 minutes later we're angry or we're bargaining. So these things happen dynamically. They don't just all happen like, okay, I'm done with that stage, now I'm going to the next. So I just wanted to normalize that with you. So denial is really denying that something happened. So if your loved one just passed away in the hospital, your denial might be in the form of, well, maybe the doctors made a mistake and they're still okay. That would be denial. Your brain wants them to still be alive. You want them to still be there. Your brain hasn't caught up with the reality yet. It's searching for them. Another stage is anger. It's natural to feel angry towards the traumas that we've been through, the losses that have occurred. Maybe we're angry because there was no warning. Maybe we're angry at God. Maybe we're angry because we have unfinished business with that person that we never dealt with. Bargaining is another one. Sometimes we'll bargain with God. Oh God, if only you do this and make me better, then I will blank. I'll do this. So there's a bargaining aspect of the grief. Depression is another one where we feel sad, we feel hopeless. We don't know what to do without that loved one, or we're just depressed over how sad that event just happened. Or we're just outright just sad about what had just happened, and that's normal. Acceptance is the final stage, and that has to do with what is my life like without that trauma? How do you deal with all these emotions and your grief? So let's talk about what do you do with your emotions? How can you practically work through your grief or your trauma? I always tell my clients, you want to be a river of emotions and not a dam. You don't want to dam up your emotions. When you dam something up, the waters become dirty. The waters increase in bacteria and parasites and alligators, and you don't want to dam your emotions up or suppress it and push it down. I get that response. It's a natural flight response to the hurt that you've had, but it's really not going to help you. You want to sort through them, talk them through, process regularly in multiple different ways. There's a really good book called Run to the Roar, and it's a book on grief. And the story that has to do with the title Run to the Roar is about lions in Africa and how they hunt. And it turns out that the female lions do the lion's share of the work, okay? The male lions will sit back by themselves while the female lions or the lionesses go out and get prepared for the hunt. And what happens is the male lion sets out a roar that can carry up to 5 miles away. It's a huge roar, and it's very scary, as you can imagine. And that the little animals would actually be more safe. They would be more free if they ran towards the roar rather than away from the roar. And the roar represents the traumas, the grief, the difficulties of our life. So we want to run towards the roar of our problems in order to get freedom. It's a bummer that that's the case, but for whatever reason, there's a lot to learn in that process of running towards the problems. And in psychology, they would call it exposure therapy. It's a type of exposure. And when we expose ourselves to our traumas by working through the narrative and the problems, our bodies can learn to adapt and calm throughout the narrative. Our bodies learn that's over. Whatever had happened to us is over. And it's very important that we run to the roar, that we face our issues. So what we want to do with our emotions is we want to face them, and we can face them through journaling. Journaling is known as a very powerful technique in research to help us deal with our emotions and our mood. There's some really great prompts you can do when it comes to your grief. For one, you can write a letter to your grief. So you can say, "Dear grief, this is how I feel about you. This is how I'm thinking with my grief." And you're expressing an entire letter to your grief as an emotional expression of the narrative of what's happened. You can also express yourself to a local grief group. There are church groups like Grief Share, or there may be some grief groups at your local chaplaincy that can help you process what had happened to you, along with people that have been through similar things. And hearing each other's stories is so powerful when it comes to your grief. Being with other people, bonding with them through the grief is so important, very helpful. You can also consider therapy. If you really feel stuck, there's multiple levels of your grief, or it just feels like I don't want to say going away. It's not about like getting over it. It's about, am I stuck here? Do I feel like I'm not getting that? Am I feeling like the grief group's not enough? Go see a therapist. You can get individualized treatment. And EMDR is a really good method that I personally use. I find it very helpful in helping people work through their traumatic and difficult memories or griefs. And lastly, consider deeper existential questions like, why am I here? What's my purpose? What's going on? There's a quote from C.S. Lewis that says, "God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks to us in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world." I encourage you to, if you go to church, go back to church, talk to a local pastor, and consider, is there more than just this? Thank you for watching this. For more insights into relationships and mental health, please consider some of my other videos. Thank you, and have a great day.